Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to a Bloop and a Blast podcast. I'm Big Sexy. I'm the Bloop, and Hughesy is the Blast. Hughesy, mate, we've got a pretty special guest here. What's going on, mate? Who we got?
We do. My old national team manager, Jonathan Deeble, mate. Welcome to Bloop and the Blast podcast.
How you going, guys? Good to be here.
Thanks for
Mate,
coming, Deebs.
Mate, Big Sexy, just fresh off a plane, straight from Bali, straight to doing a podcast. How you feeling?
Feeling pretty good, boys. I've got to shout out to, first of all, I have to shout out to my sponsor, Oki Sunglasses. Definitely strong Indonesian brand. Looks a little bit like Oakley, but it's definitely not. It's just, a new sponsor. So, look, Bali was great, mate. Pretty happy to be back in the land of fresh drinking water and no scooters. So, but anyways, we're here. We're here with Deebs. So I'm pumped. I'm pumped to be here. So,
mate, welcome, Deebs. Mate, I've got pages worth of stuff here I need to get through to give you a little pump up to start this, mate. But firstly, welcome to our podcast, mate. It's been obviously a pleasure over the years having you as my manager. But I do have some stuff here that I would like to get through, and I like to kick it off with our people that we get on here, mate. You're a national team player for 14 years. You represented the country at the 98, 88 Olympics. Claxon Shield, 92 to 2000, won a Claxon Shield with the Melbourne Monarchs. Then you're inducted to the Hall of Fame in 2006. Your dad was inducted in 2005. Your brother also played for the national team. It's pretty special. Australian national team manager for 17 years, mate. You come into the job at 36, which I want to touch base on tonight and how that kind of came about. Mate, you're a manager with the Florida Marlins in 97 to 01. You won, obviously, a World Series there with them in 97. Red Sox in 03 you managed before, venturing into the scouting world, mate, where you're with the Red Sox, I think, as a Pacific Rim scout from 2002 to 2016, winning 3 World Series while you were there with them, 04, 07 and 13, before transitioning obviously over to the Dodgers in 2016 till now, mate. And obviously won a World Series with them in 2020, and you go to the World Series next week, mate. 3-time Claxon Shield, 1 as a player, 2 as a manager. Mate, you're obviously coaching the Melbourne Aces. You've been there since 2016. I know D-San stepped in for a year, but obviously got you back in there as well, mate. We'll touch base on the Aces and everything later in the podcast. Mate, you were at the helm of the Major League Baseball Australian Academy, from 2001 for 15, 16 years. Mate, it's been, for me, looking at this and going through this, it's been one hell of, a baseball journey for you, mate. I'm excited to kind of dive into it. I had you as my manager for 14, 15 years on the national team. I got to win a Claxon Shield with you with the Melbourne Aces a few years ago. It's I tell a lot of people, and when I talk about you to them and what you kind of mean to me, and I'll keep the touchy-feely stuff for the end, but, mate, you are like a second father to me, mate. I call you, I talk to you all the time, and it's been a pleasure, having you, I guess, guide me as a baseball player and so many Australian baseball players over the years to help us, to make us better, to be there for us, to talk to us, to pick up the phone, have a conversation, have a laugh, get our mind off baseball, just shoot the breeze. And, mate, welcome to the podcast, mate. And I'm not sure where we want to start tonight, but, I wouldn't mind touching base a little bit on your national team, career and the national team managing career, mate. So, for me, going back to looking at that, you got to go to the 88 Olympics. That must have been pretty special at the time. And I know you played at a lot of other major events through that time, but the 88 Olympics must have just been one hell of a ride.
Yeah, it was, Hughesy. And I was pretty lucky. I wasn't that good. That's why, as a player, that's why I started managing early. But, no, it was good. We had a good bunch of guys. Mike Young was our manager, and we actually won the first game. I pitched in the first game. We beat Canada, and which set us on our way. And I think we had to play Korea. Geez, we're going back a long time now.
See how that memory goes for you tonight, mate.
Yeah, well, with my young Korean scouts that work for me, every time, because that stadium's still there, and every time we walk in there, I keep saying, "Where's that statue of me?" At this. I got no idea what I'm talking about. Explaining that I was in the Olympics, I said, "There's a statue here of me somewhere, but I'm not sure where it is." But that was fun. Youngie was the manager. Phil Dale was the pitching coach on that team, and we had to beat Korea in the end to go through to the medal rounds. And I can't remember. I think we lost in 15 innings. And back then there was a guy named Sun who was pitching. I'll never forget his name. But back then in '88, he was throwing 95, 96. And that was hard back then. And our guys had seen that. But it was a good experience. And so that stadium's still there now. The LG Twins and the Doosan Bears play out of it. So I'm there, 3 or 4 months of the year in Korea. But the place has really changed. It was like nearly a third world country back then. But, boy, it's one of the places to go to these days.
Mate, how much did it cost you to get put on that national team? How much did you pay Youngie to actually make that team?
I was his number one pitcher back there. I was the hardest thrower on the team at 78 miles an hour.
Just throw it softer than they could hit, huh?
That's right. Yeah. So,
mate, I joke about it a little bit, but I think your playing days are, the managing side of it and what you were able to achieve as an Australian national team manager was obviously special. But I don't think people actually understand. In '06 you got inducted into the Hall of Fame. The '05 I think it was the first year that they introduced the Australian Baseball Hall of Fame, where your dad got inducted too. So I'm sure that the party in '05, '06 must have been pretty big up there, or in Melbourne probably at that stage.
Yeah, it was in Melbourne then. I moved up to the Gold Coast 2015. So it was down in Melbourne back at that time. But I moved up here because of the academy. I was the national coach. Our head office was up here. And with my scouting job, it was just so much easier to get from the Gold Coast because they had flights directly into Tokyo, Osaka, and Seoul. So it was beautiful. So and the weather, of course. But again, the Hall of Fame, it was a great acknowledgement, I guess. And there's been some great players, but even getting back to that '88 Olympics, professionals weren't allowed to play then. So we had a bunch of professionals that probably weren't available. I may never have played for Australia. So it was only I think in the late '90s that professionals were allowed to start playing. So. But back when I was playing, it was no professionals. It was beautiful. I just wanted to make sure they kept them out.
But mate, you transitioned into managing at 36. Now, I mean, that's ridiculous to be able to go into managing at 36 out of 2000 Olympics in Sydney. You must have been absolutely shitting yourself to go and transitioning straight from a player straight into managing, mate. How'd that come about? Who was at the helm of that decision at that stage?
It was the toughest thing I've ever done, and for a number of reasons. A couple of players that I released were my roommates. In fact, were my teammates on the Australian team. So, and one of them was my roommate. But what happened was I was Mike Young's bench coach in 1999. And something happened between him and the ABF. I honestly don't know to this day what happened. But I do remember making a call to Mark Peters and saying, mate, keep Youngie in the job. We're all happy to work around him. He was mad at me, and I was trying to push them, the ABF at that time, to keep him on as the manager because we were all happy. None of us could do it.
You just won in '99, right? The Intercontinental Cup?
Yeah, so we won, and Youngie was the manager. But something happened, and I don't know what it was. And I was told basically to butt out of it. But I rang Mark Peters and I said, mate, leave him in the job. It's settled. Everyone's fine with it. The players are fine with it. Let's leave it. And basically I was told, to butt out of it. So then that was, I think, in the November. In January, I got called into a meeting with Jeff Pearce, Don Knapp. Can't remember who else was there. And they said, we want you to be the manager. And it was like, look, I look back now, I wasn't ready to do that job. There's no way I was ready to do that job. But, as I talked to Phil Jauncey a lot, I don't think we get a silver medal in Athens without the mistakes of Sydney.
Yeah.
But, it was tough. It was really tough. And I remember walking into the press conference and I was like, wow, this is more than what I expected. So I just finished playing. And, the results accordingly were we finished, I think, 7th out of 8 out of 8 teams. So, it wasn't the ideal start. But you know what? I talked to Phil Jauncey after it, and I thought if I keep this job, that we were going to set up a plan to win in Athens. And you know, I Phil Jauncey to me should take a lot of the credit. He manufactured something. He taught me so much about players and about managing people, and he taught me so much. And it was something that people don't understand. This, it was something that was built over 4 years. That wasn't an accident. What we did. Of course, you got to have the players, and every time we've played on an Australian team, I'm talking back when I played and the early years when I was managing. We'd go into tournaments and we're always the underdog because the Japanese had their pros and career, and Cuba was superstars at the time. When we hopped off the plane in Athens, we had David Nielsen, we had Graham Lloyd, we had Phil Stockman, we had Jeff Williams, we had Chris Oxspring. We had guys that have played at a higher level than the Olympics. And, these guys just took it by the nuts, and, they led. And I didn't really have to do a lot. We the team really took care. We talked about perfect execution, and that was off the field. It was making sure. And I remember David saying, it's really hot on the bus. We need to take a bottle of water and Gatorade. I said, mate, put it into play. And Brucey Rawson, he had to perform perfectly. Our coaching staff did. Our players, the infielders get behind every ball, make a quality throw to first base. Outfielders get behind every ball, hit your cutoff. Pitchers make quality pitches down in the zone. Hitters get pitches to hit and drive the ball. It was all about execution, and it wasn't about winning. It wasn't about the scoreboard, because we knew, and again, this was Jauncey, if we executed perfectly, the score was irrelevant. And I remember we played the Netherlands, and Davey Johnson, the former New York Mets manager, I think we scored 5 in the first, 9 in the second, 5 in the third, 6 in the fourth, 7 in the fifth. After the game, he came up and said, he goes, that was the biggest ass kicking I've ever had. Goes, what were you guys doing? I just said, well, we're just executing. And see, the scoreboard was irrelevant. But we were down 0-2 in that series, and I was sitting there thinking, we faced Chen Ming Wong, former Yankee pitcher. We faced Sal, the Colorado Rocky guy, and these guys are throwing 97, 98 miles an hour. But I think one of the turning points, sort of getting off the track here, but I think one of the turning points at that Olympics, because Graham Lloyd hopped up in the bus, and we'd been beaten by Cuba. We played fantastic. And our whole thing was, if we execute perfectly, there's no regrets. And we played great against Cuba. They had a guy named Palmer throwing 96, a lefty. And then the second game, we got beat by the Taiwanese. And on the way, everyone was down on the way on the bus going home, and Lloydie hopped up. And I'm telling you, I had nothing to do with it. He hopped up and he said, guys, back in 1997, I think it was, he said, when we were with the Yankees, we were down 2-0 against the Braves. He said, guys, we're playing fantastic. Let's just keep executing and keep playing the way we're playing, because, those 2 games were fantastic. But just keep executing. And we were down by 2 and we come back and won 4, and the rest is history. And I was sitting in there and I looked at Jauncey and I was like, wow. And we went on, we rattled 6 games off. We beat Japan twice in 3 days. We beat Matsuzaka, who I ended up signing for $103 million.
Thank you for that, by the way. Thank you. I love that kid.
Big Red Sox fan over here, by the way.
I loved him growing up, Matsuzaka. That was sick.
Yeah. So,
Mate, that must have been special, right? 2004 Olympics, Super Bowl, 20-year anniversary. Obviously this year, I look back at it and I'm still pissed at you. He left me off that team. You're naming all these names. My name was left off, so I'm still dark at you for that one, mate. But
Deebs, but I just want to go back and one thing that you said is quite interesting to me, and I'm just a lowly club ball guy, mate. So just not at the high performance end like Hughesy over here, but. One thing you said that was quite interesting. You said you weren't ready for it. Now, to unpack that just a little bit, if you don't mind, like, does that include? Are you referencing things like managing the personalities within the clubhouse? Is it that? Is it solely that, or is it obviously the media exposure, like you mentioned? Like, holy shit! Like, I've walked out into all these reporters. Is there anything there, like looking back on it now, that you would say like, that's it, or is it an accumulation of things that you sort of weren't ready for?
A combination.
Yeah,
I think it was definitely a combination of it all. Managing the players that who am I? And I'm managing Mark Hutton's, David Nielsen's. These guys all played in the big leagues, and that was Luke Prokopec. you know. So Michael Nakamura,
Yeah.
we just didn't perform well, and and I got to take responsibility for that, and I did, and I did something about it, and I think that's the big thing. You can blame someone else, but you take responsibility for it, and you move on. But I wasn't going to let it happen a second time, and that's when, I did a lot of work with Jaunts, and we manufactured something, and there were some things that were done that we've held close to our chest that people just don't understand. He just taught me so much about managing people and and putting stuff back on them. It was, and we've held it tight. And I did a talk for Cricket Australia. He was with Cricket Australia for a while, and I did a talk for Cricket Australia back a couple of years ago, and I gave him all the credit too. The players have got to do the job, of course, and they did. Jeff Williams was a star. Like
Everyone forgets about Jeff. I reckon he's the most underrated guy. No one talks about him.
No, but you know what I do? And, I remember Tony Harris saying at one point, who was the bench coach, he said, who do we get? This was early on. Who do we get in the 7th and the 8th to get to Williams? I said, mate, we don't. Williams is the guy, because we scouted better than anyone. We had a scouting program we put together, so we knew the Japanese players inside and out. 60 Minutes from Japan, I don't know what their version is. They actually come over to Australia and they did a video on it. And they were in my office looking at my scouting reports, and I was trying to get them away. This is a true story. And a funny story, I'm getting off a little bit here, but the funny story with that was they kept asking me, how did you beat them? How did you beat them? How did you beat them? And I don't know why I said this. I made up this story, and David Nielsen will tell you the same thing. I made up this story. I said, we had to execute. We got all the players together, and we had to execute something that was bigger than the Olympics. So we all went up in an aeroplane with our parachutes on, and we jumped off. Boats were at the bottom, and I picked it up. This is the truth. So, and I'm like, once I said it to them, they're like, oh. Anyway, it made news all over Japan. They were going up to interview David. And when they left, I got on the phone. I said, hey, listen, mate. I just told him this, and he's like, oh, my God. So they actually asked him about it.
Oh.
And his reply to them was, I'll never forget what he said to me. The reply from him was, well, they're things that we just don't talk about.
Mate, I'm going back here, and I remember we were in Japan. I can't remember what tournament it was, but we were facing Japan. And I remember we were walking down the aisle before getting into it, and you turned to me and said, hey, let's get the media. And I was like, yeah, what do you got? He goes, let's just tell them. I think it was either Maheda or Darvish that we were facing. And you were like, hey, let's just drop a little nugget in there that we know what he's throwing. He tips his pitches. And I'm sitting there, I'm gacking myself laughing. I walk into this presser, and Deebs is sitting there, stone face, right, bangs. And I'm sitting there trying not to cack myself. And he's like, yep, we've scouted these boys, and yep, he tips his pitches. And I'm in the corner going, trying to hold his laughter in and be like, and then they ran with it. It was in the media. They were talking about it. The national team, Australian team, had picked up on something, and he was tipping his pitches. And mate, you were gold for that, walking into a presser. And there's like, I don't know, like probably exaggerating a little bit, but we're talking 50, 60, 70 plus media in this, all because in 04 you took it to Japan and beat them, right, multiple times and beat them to get into the gold medal match. And I reckon ever since then, like every time we traveled to Japan, it's just been, oh, this is the team that beat us to get to the gold medal match, right? And they have shown us respect. And that's to you, man. And that's to all the boys in 04 that took it to them. And obviously, I don't want to talk too much about the gold medal match. I think, I remember watching it in the States. I was upset with myself. I wasn't good enough at the time to get there. But, mate, there was such a cracking game of baseball. And, mate, we've shared so many. We could honestly sit here and talk for hours about all the stories, but a few guys I do want to touch base as we're just talking about the national team before we kind of move on. You've had some amazing coaches alongside of you, and I know you probably want to give him a bit of a shout out, but I will first before you get to it. Tony Harris was your right hand man for so long. You were the people guy. You kept our dugout relaxed. We had a good time on the field. We had a great time off the field when we traveled, but we were all together. We did everything together. Phil Dale is the other guy that right next to you, as a pitching coach for like nearly all the time that you were a national team. We had KJ, have a chat. We had like Pat Kelly floating through there. We had so many good people involved within that space, mate. Like that, it must have been great having all your best mates as part of your coaching staff too.
Well, look, it wasn't as if they were best mates. They were the best qualified for the job. And as Phil Jaunty always used to say, I wasn't the intelligent one.
Tony was the brains behind it.
So Tony was so organised and so loyal that it was amazing, So as unorganised as I am, he is so organised.
But that's what Jaunty, right? Jaunty talked about a lot of that with you.
Yeah, he said that's why you two just work so well together. And Phil has got an amazing baseball brain. And Lloydie and Phil, and they would be able to take the pictures, and I never had to worry about them. So, and he was so good at that, but he was also very good at in-game stuff where he'd come up and say, what are you thinking here? I'm thinking we should do this. And I was really lucky to have, and I made it a point that I tried to get the best people I could. Tony ran the catches, Tony ran the pickoffs and pitch outs, Tony ran the signs. I let him do his job. Phil had complete control over the pitching. KJ, complete control over the hitters. Pat Kelly was superstar coach.
Amazing.
Yeah, you've got the infielders, mate. And I never mess with them, and I let them do their job. And, my job was just to steer the ship. Everyone was out doing their jobs, and that's why it worked so well. And, we had a great coach. And it wasn't as if they were mates, because we had arguments a lot, but they were the best we had, and they were professional baseball people, and we don't have that anymore. And, when Cameron Vale got rid of us all, a major mistake of getting rid of all the professional guys.
Mate, you were able to take it, was it like 13th or 14th in the world to number 5 in the world through the period of managing? I was a part of it, like a lot of those years, mate. And, first 06 World Baseball Classic, we went there. We played some great games of baseball. Obviously, the game against Mexico was the Cuba game. That was, we were a couple of outs away from going through to that second round that year against a star-studded Cuban team. This is before everyone was getting picked off to go to the States. So I think if you look back and look at that team, we faced Chapman, we rocked him around. He was throwing 98 to 100. Pedro Lazo, he was, pumping 100. He's probably the one guy, and the catcher, Pastana. Yeah. Those two guys, I always say when people ask me about the guys that should have played in the big leagues, Lazo and him were the two guys for me. And they were in their prime, right? These guys were unbelievable. 09 World Baseball Classic, 13. We had some pretty special times within, I guess, the inaugural World Baseball Classic. And, some unfortunate time through, I feel that, baseball found itself outside of the Olympic Games, which was tough, right? In, what was it, 2008 went up to, it's always funny, these tournaments, the times of year and who's available to play. And that's probably the toughest thing for a national team through that period, was who's actually available to play, who can play. That 08 was pretty tough pill to swallow, not qualifying, knowing that it was out in 2012 and 2016, before obviously getting back in 2020. And, unfortunately, the boys couldn't go away to compete, but we got to share some special memories. Seemed like every bloody tournament we're at was in Taiwan over the years. I do have to touch base on, and I do have to ask you this question because, we came together, I think it was 05. There's a bunch of young fellas went away to a World Cup. I think it was in Holland. No, it was in Holland. And there was another one that we went away to in Prague, in Italy. As a manager, when you're taking a bunch load of 20 to 30-year-old lads away to those countries, as a coach, what were you thinking? How are we going to control these boys? What was happening there?
Look, I just think when you're representing Australia, it's on you. If you're at that level, it's on you. And we never really had any problems, during that whole time. I can't remember a problem that we had. I remember down in the World Baseball Classic in Mexico, and you were on that trip, weren't you?
Yeah, you finally picked me. No, I'm not joking.
When we beat Mexico and they had to put the bus on.
Mate, they were throwing bloody
bolts at us out of
bolts
the
and stuff. Yeah.
yeah. But that series, getting back to that, Chapman. Remember Benny Rissinger? Like he was out in the mines and he come and Chapman went through 105 that game,
Yeah.
105 miles an hour. And I said to Benny, I said, that looks really quick. He said, yeah, if you could see it, it's pretty quick.
Is this in 06?
Yeah.
This is
Yeah.
what we had Snell on and we beat
Yep.
Mexico. But they changed that format for that thing. We would have gone to the next round in that tournament.
Great. Yep.
I just remember 06 because I was a kid then. I was in year 10 in high school, and Matt Gain from Lismore, shout out Matt Gain, he was in that team.
Yep.
And you guys are playing the Dominican Republic team. You've got like at that point I'm a mad Red Sox fan, so there's like Manny and Big Papi, and then there's all the other guys in that DR team, and you're just saying like, oh my god, this is real life. Like,
Mate, that 06 we rolled into. So that was in Florida. 09 was in Mexico, right? And 06, like I remember looking in the locker room, and there, like everybody played in that tournament. Like everybody, Big Papi was there.
yeah,
You know, like Pujols was there, Piazza was there for Italy, Team Italy. You know, 09 was amazing for us. I think that's where we started having some success. I think 06 was, a bit of a starting point for us. But, looking back at those times, it's pretty special. I think a lot of the young guys, when I was a young fella through there, I think I got hit by Cabrera, who was pumping about 101 for the Dominican Republic, and I ran down at first base, and I'm standing next to Pujols, and he gave me a little tap on the butt, and he was like, "Hey mate, how are you?" And I was like, "Well, he didn't say that, but he was like, "Cabasso primo," and like those things, I think, built us as players at that stage. A couple of young fellas on that team, and we got through.
That year in 2006, that was the first time I realised when you went to that tournament, we were so overmatched. It was ridiculous.
Ridiculous.
Yeah, but you know what? Most of the 17 years we were overmatched, but we had to make it up in other areas. What we talked about, leaking to the media, and we were underdogs, and everyone said, "Oh, you're punching above your weight," but we were 13th in the world when we took that over, and we got to 5th in the world. But when they got rid of me, I had Jeff Hooker and Cameron Vale bail me up at the Rudy Hill RSL, and they said, "You need to be top 2 in the world." And I said, "Guys, forget about top 2 in the world. Worry about the MFs behind us because they're coming, and they're coming quick." So I said, "Don't be worrying about the top 2. Worry about the ones coming behind us. Czech Republic, Germany, China." And that's held true. Our under-18s this year got beat by the Czech Republic. Our under-23s got beat by China. But, the top 2 in the world. I said, "That's fantastic vision. Where's the plan?" And I got donuts back. But where's the plan? No plan.
And from without am I diving into an absolute can of worms here, Hughesy? Correct me if I'm wrong, but like what do we need to do to correct this? Just stay on the path that we're on? Do we need to correct course back to that, to sort of what you guys had implemented, or and coming from it purely from a layman, I'm just trying to get the conversation going in that way.
I don't think it's that. Like David's got the team at the moment, and they've been going very well, and it's bloody hard. It's not easy. And the job is, and I'm sure David will tell you now, it's a thankless job because you just get motherfucked by everybody every single day in the media. When they got rid of me, I had certain people here in Queensland had fake Facebook's names and just given it to me. And it takes a toll on you. And, you get to the point where it just builds up. It's not an easy job because you're not going in there as the 27 Yankees. You're going in there as the Australian team, and it's pretty hard. And, I think our guys are doing a good job now. I helped them out last year with advanced scouting. I got a call they hadn't had any reports on Cuba, so I spent about 7 hours getting reports to them. And, I want those guys to do well. But
absolutely. And talking about scouting, right? Like that's I guess, we talk about the player, Jon Deeble, the national team manager, but the scouting side of things is where you've been involved, for the last 20, 25 years, right? Like you first obviously got into that with the Red Sox after, you managed there, I think for 1 year. They must have sacked you pretty quick. You must have been a terrible manager. And then obviously went into scouting, and you spent about 14 years there with the Red Sox.
Sorry, I've got to interrupt here. I've got to. Sorry, Hughesy, I'm terribly sorry. I've actually got a lot of myths I've got to unpack with you. First of all, around the time you were coaching with the Red Sox, Deebs, there was this rumor going around Australian baseball, something to do with Adam Gilchrist. Everyone was saying that the Red Sox were interested in signing Adam Gilchrist, and we were all like, "This is BS."
Mate, he brought him down. Like we had BP. I remember hitting batting practice.
It was way before that. I'll tell you what it was. It was 2005. I was coaching in the big leagues that year.
Right.
And I'll never forget, I was on the bus going to Toronto, going to the hotel, and Theo Epstein called me. He goes, "Mate, what's going on here with this cricketer?" And I said, "Mate, it's all a load of shit." Basically, what he was doing and his manager was doing, it was the last year of his contract. So he was trying to negotiate, but it was rubbish.
Bit of smoke and mirrors.
Gilly's also another Lismore boy, but anyways, that's all right.
But on Gilly, mate, we hit batting practice with him.
Yeah,
and I think who did he face? I think it was it was Josh Sylvie from Perth who he faced. Yeah, he faced it from Mighty Morley Eagle player, right? The ex ABL Perth Heat player. I remember him facing. He was facing him, and Gilly was like,
this was years later, and I'll tell you what happened. It's the water's under the bridge now, and I'm out of the baseball, so I can tell you what happened. So we were playing the Dodgers and the Diamondbacks.
I remember this. Yeah.
And I got told I need to go to Perth because they want Adam Gilchrist to play.
That's right.
I said, I'm telling you right now, I'm walking if Adam Gilchrist plays on the Australian baseball team. And I was getting ripped, and I said, guys, I'm telling you. And I said, I reckon 15 players will be with me. I said, how would we go? Because they want to sell tickets to the Dodgers Diamondbacks. I said, how insulting is that to my players? It's an insult. How would we go if we walked into the cricket and said, we're going to play at Lords for Australia? Yeah. I said, so don't insult us. And the promoter and that, they were adamant that they were going to, and I said, it ain't happening. But he took me. I was over there for something else, and I remember being at the field. But I'll tell you another quick story. I got a phone call one day from David Warner's agent, and he said, mate, we want to have a tryout. And I said, mate, you're a million to one. I said, I don't have time. And it was at me. I said, mate, it's not going to happen. Hinesy called me up, and he goes, mate, can you make this happen? He's a mate of mine or someone, I can't remember. So they were up on the Gold Coast playing golf. So I said, all right, we'll go down to Palm Meadows. Anyway, I can't remember who was throwing him. Well, he started throwing. So I was playing catch with him, and I said, mate, you're going to break down within 12 months throwing like that. He goes, what do you mean? And I said, you're throwing wrong. Anyway, he did nothing.
Great. Yep.
12 months to the day, he blew his shoulder out.
Yeah.
Anyway, so he starts taking BP, and I'm sitting back there like this at the back field at Palm Meadows. And this guy is squaring balls up like no one I've seen. And I'm like, so after about, I don't know, 30, 40 swings, I said, mate, did you play as a junior, did you? And he goes, no, I've never played. And I'm like, damn. So I forget the kid's name, he was a sidearmer. So I got him down from the top field. We put a catcher in there. He was squaring balls up. It was ridiculous. It was just line drive after line drive. Wow. So anyway, after it all, they said, well, what do you think? And I said, what do I think about what? About signing him playing in the major leagues. I said, mate, he's 10 million to one. And I said he'd start off $5,000 in rookie ball, and then he'd have to go to low A, high A, double A, triple A major leagues. I said, mate, he's got not a chance. And they were shocked. I said, it was unbelievable what he did. But I said, mate, he's got no chance. And I said, how much is he making at the moment? And he told me, which I won't repeat. But I said, mate, let me tell you something. If you want to
stick with that.
Unbelievable. His hand-eye coordination was ridiculous.
But there's been a lot of guys that sit back and you watch and you're like, if you played baseball at a young age, like there's definitely guys there that have played on the Australian cricket team that would be, great baseball players. And obviously back in the day, I know a lot of the boys played winter baseball in the off season and played, cricket in the summer. And a lot of the greats that you're good friends with, did it. And a lot of the guys that were there at that 2014 Dodgers Diamondback series, and he organised a few cool things for us with all the old legends. And I remember sitting there and with all the boys that were there, like those guys easily, if they played, would have, I think, had a chance, right? Like the hand-eye coordination, some of these guys is just unbelievable.
Getting back to that Dodger Diamondbacks game, I had my phone in my back pocket. I was standing right for it, and it rang. It was Greg Chappell. He goes, mate, can you get me in here? I can't get in.
I remember this. He's got a frigging statue out the front, doesn't he?
Am I allowed to swear? I said, yeah. And you were asking me to get you into the Sydney cricket ground.
Yeah.
And, so Ian was there. I was actually not far from Ian Chappell on the field, and they got it sorted out. And he come onto the field. I said, mate, that's one to tell my bloody grandkids.
Yeah.
Wait to help Greg Chappell get into his own cricket field.
Yeah.
Oh,
mate, I know we could sit here for hours and talk about this, but you got to, you were a part of the team 04, 07, 13 with the Red Sox, so that took you to 4 World Series rings in the different organizations that you were, and then from there you moved into the Dodgers, the director of international scouting with them in 2016. Took over, mate. You guys won a World Series in 2020. You're back there in another World Series this week. And I know you'll be jumping on a plane and flying out probably tomorrow or the next day. Mate, how special is that as you sit back and you're able to land Ohtani as a free agent this year? You got Yamamoto. I know you had a massive part in, those two guys coming to the organisation. What's in store next week, mate, for you?
Look, I've been lucky. We've got really good relationships there. And I've been scouting Ohtani since high school. So I knew him personally, and it was really funny. We had good relationships with the school, with his head coach. So we would, and outside of his school, the media were just, you got no idea how many media were at his school. So I was getting driven in the back doors and taking Boston people in the first time and then Dodger people in as it went on. But after he became a pro, but we were getting in the back door to watch him at the indoor places work. So I had a really close relationship with him, and
did you make a run? Obviously, you made a run at him before he signed with the Angels.
So out of high school, is that right? Like you would have been ranked before he went MPB, is that right?
Yeah. So I saw him one day, and this is without a word of lie. Logan White was there, who's with the Padres. Him and I, and it was a rainy old day. He was in high school, and I saw him touch 100. And on the same day, I saw him hit a ball over the batter's eye in centre field. So, but
did you go with a blank check and said, "Mate, what do you want? Here it is."
And we had an interview. I bought Boston people in the time. I bought all our people in. We interviewed with him, but see, at that time, if you're the first pick in the country or a first rounder, there's so many influences in Japan that don't allow you to come to America. And the first and only guy that did it, I signed him, was Junichi Tozawa.
Yep.
So I signed Junichi Tozawa. I was at a game one day and I was with Ship, and I dominated over there, Craig Shipley. But we were on the phone to each other. And I said, we're like, we've got a live one here. And it was, so I went up to the mountains to watch this guy pitch. I reckon I was the only Westerner that's ever been there. And I walked in the place, and I was up in this mountain. It was freezing cold. And I said, Ship, he's walking. As I walked in the stadium, he's walking out to pitch. Anyway, so I said, mate, this is the real deal, this guy. And he's pitching for Eneos Gas. He was pitching for a gas petrol station team.
Is that Industrial League? Is that what that is? Or yeah.
So anyway, that year the Red Sox played the Oakland A's in the Tokyo Dome opening season. Ship and I weren't there. We were at the Yakult Stadium. He was pitching in an industrial game, and he gave up a triple at the first hitter and then struck out 22.
Shit.
So we signed him, and it was funny. We offered him X amount of $1 million. I won't go into that. And we didn't expect him to sign, to agree. And then all of a sudden he agreed. So Theo Epstein goes, mate, he's agreed. You need to get on a plane. I spent a week over there with the contract in my hand, with the translators. We had everyone there. He goes, no, I have to pitch for my team until November. I'm like, no, mate, you're coming to spring training now.
Yeah.
Like, no. And I said to Theo, I rang Theo, I go, mate, this bloke ain't signing. I'm telling you right now, I've done everything I possibly can. He's not signing. Anyway, I took Al Nipper, former big leaguer. I took Al Nipper over to his industrial team because we wanted to make sure he could throw a split with the American ball because Daisuke couldn't because his fingers were so small.
Yeah.
Anyway, he could throw it, and that was all good. But it got leaked to the media that were there, and all the other teams then found out about it because no one knew. So we were at the Tokyo Dome. There was an industrial tournament. Ship and I, we were sitting in the right field bleachers with a pair of binoculars on to see what teams were there. Anyway, Texas offered him $7 million. I think the Braves offered him $5 million, and he left it on the table for what we'd originally offered him.
Yeah, but you signed some. You mentioned some names, and lucky enough to face basically most of them. Daisuke was the guy that came out. That was the huge signing at the time.
That was sick
to be able to get him to come out to the States and play. Yamamoto now, probably the most recent guy at that level. I know you've signed a ton of guys over the years. If you look back at it now and go, who's the guy that you were most excited about to watch, that you saw that you're like, this guy is the real deal? Doesn't matter if he didn't pan out to what he wanted to be. Like, who was that guy for you?
I think the first one was Matt Suzaka.
Yeah.
Probably the two that we didn't pay anything for that had the most success. We signed Okajima for $1 million.
That's
he made
right.
an all-star team in 2 World Series. And I see him all the time over in Japan, and he's forever thankful. I see Tazawa all the time over there. And, those two were like $1 million guys.
Yeah.
Those other guys are, hundreds of millions. So, those two guys were Tazawa had an amazing career. When you look back at what he did for a guy that he pitched at Eneos Gas out of Osaka, and in 12 months later, he won a game in Yankee Stadium.
I was actually going to bring up Okajima because we were at I was there playing one day at the Blue Wave Service Paradise. Got the shirt out. Doesn't fit me anymore, but that's all right. But we were playing on Field 1 there at Service Paradise in Benoa, and someone said, "Oh, there's a guy over there, a pro guy throwing over on the backfield." And it was summer, and we're like, "Oh, cool, we'll go over and have a look." And I'm like, this is in the middle of it, right? He's playing for the Red Sox at this point. And I go over, I go, Dad, that's Hideki Okajima. And it was. He's just over here, and it makes sense now, right? But, at the time, I'm like, what the heck? This guy is on the Red Sox. I'm a Red Sox fan. And we knew about it, even then, we were like, oh, he sort of got bundled in. And I think the idea was that, so Daisuke had sort of a national guy with him sort of thing, and as well as his interpreter. But it was for us, as kids, man, that was sick. We were like, oh my God, that's a guy from the Red Sox. But yeah, Okajima, it panned out way better for him too. He was on that team for way longer than Daisuke in the end, and a fraction of the cost.
You would remember when we had the World Championships in Holland, and we had a kid pitch against us from Nicaragua called Devon Hansack. I actually signed him. He was a cray fisherman. That was his job, and I signed him. And he got to the big leagues the last day of the season. I know what year it was. He pitched a no-hitter in a 6-inning rain-shortened game. Last game of the season against Baltimore Orioles, he threw a no-hitter. And signed him for $0 out of the World Championships.
But it's the amount of guys, and I know a lot more stories, mate, about this, and we've talked about this at extent over the years. But I mean, you travel as a scout. Mate, you're gone half the year. Your family, your lovely wife and kids, have, but you've been able to go away, do your job, support you. It's been, probably something for them without their support and of you doing that. But you would never have been able to do and travel the world and continue to travel the world without, Sharon and the kids, So you're pretty lucky, right?
Well, absolutely. She's been a rock. She's a superstar. And, without, she's never questioned once. In fact, if I'm home for a couple of weeks, she says, you sure you don't need to be somewhere?
Get out of here.
Yeah, but look, she's been fantastic through it all. And so have the kids, Katie.
Superstar basketballer in her own right.
Yeah, so she's down with the Capitals, Canberra Capitals this year. She just got back from college, so she was at Wake Forest. But I didn't really. She's really close to Sharon because I wasn't home a lot, and
Yeah.
you look back now and there's regrets and all that, but you know, eh,
It's a part of it, right? Yeah. It's
yeah,
tough.
it's part of the job, and but I do get time off, and that's where the Aces thing comes in, like. Um, I've made no secret of this. Once DSAN gets his green card, he's going to be the Melbourne Aces manager. I'm just keeping the seat warm because I don't want to let Brett Ralph down and Huber and these guys. But my time's up, and they need someone else. He's keen to do it. He's young,
Yeah.
and I said I'll hang around for a while to. I just don't want to drop it and leave him because we got such a good thing going there with
Yeah.
with Ralphie and all the guys. So,
Mate, the Aces are my pick to click this year. I've said it
Yeah.
in a previous one. Looking at the team and knowing Brett and what he's about, Wernie, Justin, you guys. It's been a couple of years now since you won one. We were lucky enough to win one together, which was amazing, mate. I've got a photo of me hugging you after we won, and I had it up at my house. It's framed and all that stuff like that, and over in Perth. And I remember when Lockie Dale came over for the first time. He's like, "Mate, you've won 6 Claxton Shields with the Heat, right?" And the one photo that you have up of a baseball anything is you hugging Deeble on top of your bar fridge. He's like, "What's going on with that?" Right? And I think what I'm trying to say here is, that's how special it was that we got to share those times. D-San, Scotty Mitchell were there.
yeah.
We had unbelievable team that year. Shane Robertson went off. Obviously, Dell was there. It was just a great, bunch of guys. And I know, D-Sam went into managing, won another one the next year. And then he's just, another guy that we'll get on this podcast. I wanted to get him through the playoffs before we steal him and throw him on you. And that's going to be one hell of a podcast. I tell you right now, get the bleeps out because he'd be swearing his head off.
I love it.
But D-San, obviously, hopefully gets his green card soon. I know it's nearly been 2 years from him going through it, but as the Aces we look at the roster, and I know the boys obviously personally and very close with a lot of the guys. You've got Robbie Glendenning, Aaron Whitefield, Daryl George, 3 of the guys that I look at, and Greg Bird. 4 of the guys that I'd say at any time can win a Helms Award and carry that team through to a championship. What's, I guess, been missing over the last couple of years, and what are you looking for this year as you move into, another year?
Look, I think, we were unlucky last year. Adelaide obviously a great team. I think we out hit them 9-3 and got beat, and just things didn't go our way. So, I thought we were a bit unlucky last year, but the years before, I just think guys thought they'd just ride on automatic pilot and automatically win, just by the force of their presence. But it doesn't work that way. You've got to throw the balls up every year. But, this year we've really concentrated on pitching. I'm really mad, not because we had a pitcher coming out this year and he pulled out yesterday. I'm mad not because we're not having any pitch. I'm mad that the Australian people aren't going to get to see this guy. His name is Yamashita. He is the next coming in Japan. And I think if we had had him there this year, we would have had a ton of pro teams come out.
Yeah.
This guy's a second Ohtani, 6'5", 6'6", up to 102 with a split that you wouldn't believe. And when I got the news, because I'm really tight with the Oryx people, and we go out all the time over there. I'm always talking with them. They have me in their offices and watching the games behind home plate in the corporate box. But if we had to have seen this guy, if we could have seen this guy come out here and pitch, this was the second best pitcher in Japan behind Yamamoto. And there's a lot of talk that he could end up being better than Yamamoto. But he just pulled out the other day, and I was like, damn. Not for us, but for people to watch this guy throw. It's electric stuff.
Well, it just makes the league better, doesn't it? Like everyone has that experience, as well as the players, as well as just the fans. But That's what you're referring to, but like also like guys facing that,
Well, your Australian team gets better when you're
Yeah,
facing guys like that.
yeah,
Everyone gets better, and again, it wasn't a selfish thing to say, "Oh, we'll get this guy, we'll get 5 wins," but I would have liked people to go, "Oh,
Shit.
that's what it's really about to be a
Yeah.
frontline big leaguer."
and it
Yeah.
raises the level of the league too, right? Like if you get a guy of that standing, man.
But
So
we've really bumped our pitching up this year. Texas is sending players out. I think we're going to be really good. We lost John Kennedy to Canberra, but our pitching's going to be solid.
Mate,
So
so I look at it, and a couple of guys that I've mentioned in a previous podcast I was talking to, and for me, we know, like I know what we're going to get from Darryl George, I know what we're going to get from Robbie, RG6, and there's a couple of guys for me that I think that are huge in your lineup. And one, Jared Dale had a great year last year for you. He really took a step forward within his Australian baseball, I guess, career. Berkey's another one that, when he puts that Australian uniform on, he just freaking goes bonkers. Like he becomes one of the better hitters going around. But one of the keys, I think, and I talked to you a lot about this last year, keys to your success is at the top of the order, and it starts with Aaron Whitefield. And for me, if you get Aaron Whitefield going, getting on base, causing havoc, stealing bases, that adds another dynamic that there's not a lot of players that can do what he can do in that space to set the tone for the heart, which is obviously Greg Bird, Robbie, Georgie, those guys, and whoever else that you guys are going to sign to bring into that roster. And those are the guys for me that I feel like Whitey's got to have a big year for you. He's a confident guy. Like he likes to play on confidence and stuff like that. But for me, I don't know. Like, are those the guys that you look to turn to go like, mate, it's time, go run with it?
look, we've got a very good hitter coming outside of Greg Bird, and we've got a kid that's hit 20 home runs in A-ball coming. So our offense is bolstered even more.
Yeah.
Whitey, I sat down with Whitey 18 months ago. I said, Whitey, what are you doing? You're trying to hit home runs. It's not your game, mate. You're pulling off all the outside third of the plate was the pitches because you weren't covering it, blah, blah. He didn't listen. Anyway, I sat
Can't
him down.
wait for him to listen to this. I'm going to send it to him.
Yeah, well, he knows. I'm not talking nothing he don't know. Anyway, so last year we sat down again. He goes, I'm ready to listen. So we changed his complete approach. I said, mate, get on. I said, when I used to manage against you, mate, I'd break out in a rash because I knew if we put you on base with the hit or a walk, it was second, it was third.
Yeah.
And I said, your game. And then I mentioned to him, I said, mate, in the big leagues, Quinton Berry, what's his name? Not Al Gore, Terrence Gore.
Yeah.
There's all these guys that are on big league rosters who are 80 defenders, off the chart defenders, can fly, can pinch run for you. Dave Roberts was another one.
Yeah.
And I said, mate, that is you. You are not. He was 215 pounds. You're going to put on another 15 pounds and hit more home runs. I said, you're dreaming.
Yeah.
Anyway, so we went over his swing. We sat down and we worked a swing path. This year, I said, mate, you see, I'm all about building tools. And I said to him, mate, build your tools. He goes, what do you mean? I said, you're throwing, since he hurt his shoulder, I rehabbed with him when he was throwing, even when I wasn't the Australian manager. We would throw up here and we got his arm back. I said, you're an 80 defender, you're an 80 runner, you got 5 tools. I said, your throw, you need to be a 50 thrower. You've got 80 range. And I said, the hit tool it's 20. So let's put the ball in play and put the pressure on people and get back to what you were. So he's in Melbourne at the moment. He's been going to a sprint coach. I said, mate, your run tool has decreased. It's the only tool that decreases. So when you run it. So anyway, he's been with a sprint coach for about 8 months down in Melbourne because he couldn't get his visa to go to the States. He is breaking records at the moment of what he achieved when he was 17, 18, when he was going to run in the store gift. So you're going to see a different guy, and you're going to see, and I love the guy to death, and that's why
he's a great guy. Yeah.
And I wanted to say this to him, and I don't care what you think of me, but this is what is going on. You're trying to hit home runs, it's not your game, mate. So, if he can stick with this, with the Australian team, if he can get back into pro ball, because What
It's
I
got something that like, a lot of people don't have.
exactly
You can't teach speed, mate. Like you're
no,
fast, you're fast. If you're not like Big Sexy sitting on the couch over there,
I am
he
very
ain't
fast.
running anybody, you know.
I'm a
but I said to
95
him,
run tool, John. Just
you
so
know,
you know.
if you've got 5 tools, and I said, if you're above average in all of them, you're a big leaguer.
Mm.
And I just think he lost his way when he went to the Angels. Trying to hit home runs, it's like, mate, just get on, because he's a pain in the ass when he gets on. And I want other people to feel what we all used to feel when
Yeah,
he was.
exactly. Mate,
So,
you mentioned that obviously the Oryx. You got some guys coming out from Oryx, which I'm sure you guys are announced soon. There's some other guys. You know, for me, this is the exciting time of the year. As I say it all the time, as a baseball fan, looking at the ABL and seeing the guys that have come out, the clubs that announce, and who they're bringing. It sounds like you guys have got some dudes, ready, and this is why, and there's none of our conversations, this has got nothing to do with the fact of, our conversations that we have, but knowing Brett, and the way he operates, he wants another championship. 100%. As I said, it's been a couple of years, and you guys have been able to, as an organization, and with Brett and Wernie and the guys out there, create an atmosphere that nobody said that you'd be able to do. Like everyone said, you're playing in the western suburbs, not going to happen. You're not going to get fans. You're not going to draw people. You've been able to, build a stadium, basically, redo everything, all the corporate areas. You've got two fantastic areas down first and third base line, the party deck, best VIP section in the whole of Australian baseball. There is no place in Australian baseball that you can sit that close with that type of corporate hospitality to be able to see a game from that area. Like it's been, I guess, over the years, great to see the development of, new lights, scoreboard. It's a great setup and a great facility. You guys have, created another field at the backfield. It continues the improvements of the, I guess, the facilities and the drive to be a better organisation. It's great to see for Australian baseball, and I always say I respect and always say that Brett Ralph, has put in his fair share. We'll just put it that way, to continue to develop baseball not only within the state but within the country. So, when people come in, they get, the clubhouse got redone. Like it's amazing. I wish I was there when it was. All of a sudden now it's beautiful in there too. So there's definitely a lot there to be, I guess, thankful for, and I know the players are very thankful for the opportunity to be able to do that. But it's been able to draw fans into the facility, and you guys are doing great within that space too.
yeah, well, look, we were getting 2,200, 2,100 people a night, but you're going to see a massive difference now because, look, Ralphie spent so much on the place, and there's new indoor batting cage, indoor bullpens, indoor gym. I think it'll be ready, but we've also got Hummer Eagles now that have their spring training there. So hopefully they want to extend the field back, which they've got lights on the backfield now, and get another team in there. And so Hughes is working hard on that. But,
Yeah.
Just getting back to those players, everyone thinks that we pay a lot of money for these players. And I'm here to tell you, it's just incorrect. I'll tell you right now, Delman Young paid his way out the first year and paid for his hotel. And money's not an issue to him, but he loved it so much. And I actually said to him the second year, I said, mate, we're going to have to give you something. So we paid his hotel, and he might have made $5,000. And people go, oh, bullshit. And I'm telling you, it's the same with Birdie. Greg Bird's already out here. He just loves Australia. And this guy, you talk about a good teammate. He's the best I've ever come across. We pick up all our balls after training out the back. He's out there, mate. He's with the snakes out the back. He's picking balls up. He drives the team bus on the road. He's a great clubhouse guy. He's a great person. He's a superstar. The lady, Wernie's wife, that runs the souvenir stand, she was telling me, we did $180,000 in merchandise last year.
Wow.
And so she can't watch the game. So Birdie went and bought her a television and had it hung up on the wall for her so she could watch the closed circuit game. That's the type of bloke this guy is. And he's like, I tell you what he did this year too, and I'm probably talking out of school, but I don't care. He turned down playing for USA in the Premier 12 to come to us.
Wow.
And I'm telling you, he ain't getting paid, mate. He just loves it. He just loves, you sit down and talk to him. He works with the kids. He's out there and he talks swings with people, and he is a star. And Delman was a star too. Like everything people put shit on Delman, certain owners, when we signed him. This guy was just a gentleman. And he said to me, everything you read about me and seen about me is true. I just love playing baseball. And so generous. We'd go out with him all the time. He'd drop $2,000 or $3,000 at a restaurant, and he wouldn't think twice. But he was coming out this year.
So
and
is that just through, like you say, obviously, and I don't want to break it. I don't want to go into it any further than that. Obviously, I respect all that, but money's not an issue, right? You're not paying a lot of money to get Delman Young. Is that just through relationships? Is that yourself, someone else has a relationship? Hey, man, should come try it. Oh, yeah, sure, no worries.
And it's absolutely, that's correct. And, we've got a couple right now that could possibly be coming out too. They're going to cost us nothing.
I hope it's Manny Ramirez, because I felt personally robbed when that happened in Sydney. But anyways, that was just,
I was on the coaching staff with Boston when Manny played, and you talk about a different cat.
Man, I got to play with that guy in AAA with Oakland, and yeah, a different cat is. Mate, I could go a whole nother episode just talking about Manny being Manny.
No, go on. I'm happy. I'm so happy. I'm my dog after the guy, mate. I love this guy.
I quickly digress, but Manny came to me one day and he's carrying around his bloody laptop, right, from bloody 1986. I was like, mate, you've made $250 million. He's got this big brick, probably the same laptop that Deebs is using right now. And it's probably a Boston Red Sox issued laptop from back in the day. And he comes over to me, and I'm in the clubhouse, and he's like, Papi. He's got a video of himself just hitting tank after tank in freaking World Series and stuff like that. He's like, Papi, how do I hit? How do I hit like this? What can I do, Papi? And I'm like, mate, you teach me how to hit. Don't come and ask me a question. I said, you're a freaking GOAT, mate. You're a Hall of Famer. He's just one of the most classic baseball people that I've ever had the opportunity to play with. And weird cat, but what a talent. What a guy.
I was sitting in the dugout one day and he hit a ball into the freeway, and it was a breaking ball. And he just sat down there like this. He didn't turn around and he goes, they just keep throwing me breaking balls, these idiots. I just keep sitting. And because he was a really good breaking ball. And there's probably a case to say he's been the best right-hand hitter of an era.
Mate, he would swing and miss and be fooled on purpose. Like, he literally, I've read stuff about it. Swing and miss and fooled, and then be like, okay, here comes another one, and just be like, and they're like, it's, we haven't spoken much about the Red Sox era or the time that you got to spend there. I think we'll get you back on another time, mate, and run through like what that was like having Big Papi and, obviously Manny.
It was really exciting and great people. The Red Sox people are great, from the owner all the way down. And when I was with the Marlins, John Henry, the owner, he bought the Marlins and he took three of us across with him. There was David, Chad, myself, actually four, Louis Ahoa and Dave Finley. So we went across to the Red Sox, and I was like, why is he taking me? So, I was
best left-handed BP going around. That's why he took you.
That's how I got to the big leagues. I tell you that story. The way I got up there, Rob Leary said to me, can you go – back in those days, you remember Fort Myers, the big league club was different areas in the minor. They said, can you shoot up there in the car and throw some BP? So I threw some shorts on. I went up there and I was throwing, and I was dotting a nat's ass, and I was just throwing it. They're like, who's this fucking guy? Anyway, so they said, you're not leaving. Veritek and Manny and David Cut. Well, and I was lucky because I managed a lot of those guys in the minor leagues with the Marlins and with Boston. I had John Papelbon in Boston. I managed Millar. I managed Alex Gonzalez. I managed Josh Beckett.
Yes. Yeah.
So it was really easy for me because I knew all the guys up there. And but that was a blast. All-Star game. We were down in Tampa, and Johnny Damon said, what are you doing? I said, I'm just going back to Boston. He goes, no, you're coming with us. So I went back to his house in a private jet in Orlando. It was me, Millar, Alex Cora, the Boston manager, And we spent the All-Star weekend at Johnny Damon's place, and they were just really good guys. And you know what? They included me.
Yeah.
You know, in Toronto, I got a phone call from Johnny Damon. Come downstairs, we're going out. And so I get downstairs, there's a big limo out the front, and I go, I'm trying to think of the guy's name now, and on the tip of my tongue. Ice hockey player. We're going to, he hadn't retired for waxing the head. I'll think of his name. But I said, I've never heard of the bloke, but we end up going to Eric Lindros. Eric Lindros' house, famous ice hockey player. But that was just the way they lived, especially in Boston. You know, like I met Drew Barrymore. I met Ozzy Osbourne. I met.
Oh, so you're dropping names, mate. Just got to watch out for them all.
I love it, mate. Keep it going. I love this.
Just because I was in that environment with them all.
I'm trying to think. I think I could name that whole team. Like Mike Millar played third base. I can't remember who played shortstop at that time.
Miller played third.
Miller? Oh, Miller. That's right.
What year was Nomar there?
Nomar was before that, wasn't he?
Yeah, I was coaching. I was coaching in the minor leagues at that time, and when Nomar was there, and then Theo got involved, and Theo actually rang me. Ship was working for the Padres, and Theo had been with the Padres when he became the GM, and he asked me. He said, "I want Ship working for us. You need to call him." And then Ship ended up being my boss. So we had a great relationship. Ship and I, and
and look, mate, another guy. I'm sorry to jump in. He's had a lot to do with Australian baseball behind the scenes, and I know how much he's been there for you over the years. And I mean, mate, he's another guy that I think people have slightly forgotten about just because how long he's been overseas. Obviously living in the States, but just another guy that's done so much for Australian baseball.
And I think people forget how good he was. You know what people forget? He was in a rugby union. He could have played rugby union for Australia. He could fly. And, you know, if you look at the Australian guys, with no disrespect, Hughesy, because you know that, you know, it grates on me. And I had a guy in 2020, we're at the bar at the Western Hotel, and he worked for the Dodgers, and we're sitting there having a beer and that, and he goes, "Oh, this guy can't play." And I said, "Mate, how many games have you played in the big leagues?" Like he was a starter guy. I said, "Do you know how hard that is?" So anyone that's played a day, I've got the utmost respect because it's bloody hard to do. I was not even in the universe for me, but I know how hard it is, and I've seen guys work to get there. And if you've spent one day there, you're a superstar.
Man, you said to me, right, and in 05, right, and I always remember it, and I've spoken to Harmo about this a lot over the years. In 05, when we went across to the Netherlands to play in the Aussie team, there's a few of the old lads still playing. Bruiser was still there. Gabba Fingleson was still there. You put Brad and myself aside after a game, and you said to me and to Brad, you're like, you two guys are going to be the guys that are going to sit here on this national team for the next 15 years, and both of you guys are going to play in the big leagues one day. And that's in 05. And I always remember that. And you could have been talking through your ass trying to pump me up. Jauncey might have teed you up and said, "Hey, look, pump these boys up. They need a bit of loving," or something like that. But, you know, I think it came from the heart at that time. And you did say that to both of us. And we both walked away from that, and we thought it was so far away. And it kind of was. It was a long time after that we actually both got to play in the big leagues. But you told us that, mate. Like you said to us, and you put the belief and the desire to get there in 05. And that was special, right? So, mate, thank you for, I guess, all the years of, service to the national team, not only as a player, but as a coach as well. All the guys, and I know, I talk to all the boys still from that period, and there's been so many fond memories of the times we got to spend on the field and off the field together. We continue to be close mates, as I said to you before, mate. You're like a second father to me, mate. So, mate, thank you, and thank you from all of the Australian baseball public for the years of service that you continue to provide, Australian baseball, mate. So, no, I just wanted to make sure. So thanks, mate.
I appreciate that, and it's been a pleasure. All those guys that play for, probably one of the biggest regrets is, a lot of guys you have to sack and then they stop talking to you, but that's part of the job, and I accept that. But that group of guys that you went with, they hold a special place for sure because you're number one, great guys, and as I said, you've worked hard, and I just think kids of today, we sort of drag it on, but 30 years ago, we talked about our obligations and responsibilities. And kids these days talk about their rights and privileges, and it doesn't sit well with me. I really find coaching these days, it's bloody hard. I was telling Brett Ralph today, it's bloody hard. And because they just got different, oh, my friend's not playing, so I'm not going to play next year. Or if such and such not on the roster, I'm not going to play. Like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
And I just sit back and it's like, guys, wake up. But that's what we've got these days. And
I'll never.
it's
Oh, sorry, you go.
no, I'm just saying it's not as enjoyable as your bunch of guys that just went after it.
I'll never forget when I first got to, and this is completely different, but when I first got to Morley, someone said to us at training, because Hughesy was our club coach at the time, and he chewed us out, to put it politely. And one of the guys said to me, he goes, "Oh, bloody hell, how do you feel coming to training to cop that?" And I said to him, "To be honest, mate, like, I kind of like that." I said, "That's how I grew up, and I didn't play, the high level that you guys are talking about, but to have that, you know where you stand. Do you know what I mean? And a little bit hard nosed, but and so and he went, "Oh, okay," but yeah, that was Hughesy as a coach, so I can only imagine the
I
differences that
enjoyed
you've
those
seen.
times, and as I said, it's time to move on. It was time to move on back then. Like when I was out of there. So there's lots of talent in the coaching ranks that we've got in Australia. It's we just got to get more kids playing, don't we?
Yep, absolutely, mate. Well,
Look,
mate, you go on to the World Series next week, or coming up. Good luck
Tomorrow,
over there, mate. Enjoy that.
I'll
You
have a
know,
well,
couple of.
before we wrap it,
go.
Deebs, what do you see, mate? What are we thinking here? It's Yankees Dodgers? I was hoping for this. I like the Dodgers team. I'm a massive Red Sox fan, but they've been terrible for a little bit. Hughesy's got his Yankees hat on. What are you thinking, mate? I think it's going to go pretty deep. I think we've got about, I don't want to say the full 7, but I think we're going, pretty deep into this. What do you reckon, John?
I don't really watch. I couldn't even tell you who plays for the Yankees. I know Rizzo does because he was a former Red Sox. I know Cole does, and Soto. So they're going to be tough. Hughesy messaged me this morning while the game's going, "What are we doing? What are you guys doing?" I'm like, "Mate, we've got no pitching. It was a bullpen day today because we've got 12 guys out that are injured from Kershaw, Glasnow, all the way down. And I think Doc Roberts was masterful. Again, this is another guy cops so much shit
Yeah.
on social media, and this is not. I wasn't at that level. This is the stuff I was copying with the Australian team, and it's like you cop so much shit, and he just can't win. Whatever he does. But I thought he was masterful this series, the way he managed his pitching staff. And I remember Terry Francona saying to me one year, he said, if you communicate well and you can manage a bullpen, you can be a good manager. And Tito was a master at managing bullpens. But yeah, so this poor guy, he takes so much shit. I've messaged him a few times. It's, we'll get rid of this guy. He's no good. And the Dodger pages, they just rip him. And now they're all saying, what a masterclass. It's like,
no, now they're all saying, they're cheating, they're buying, they're all this shit. Like I jump in the comments, mate. It gets my blood boiling too. Don't you worry about that.
Mate, it was 1-0. I flicked through this morning. It was down 1-0, and that's when I texted him. I was like, "What are you guys doing?" I saw it, and then I went and looked at the video of how they scored their run, and I was like, fisted over the picture, and I texted him back. "Oh, I take that back, mate. Sorry, I didn't know that's how they scored their first run." Right,
Well,
and
Ohtani been super, and Edmund was fantastic this
Great
series.
today.
what a pickup, right? What a freaking pickup!
Great
And
today.
that's what our front office people, they're superstars. It's just you sit back and watch these guys, and it's from Andrew to Goma, bloody stars. And it's. I thought I'd never leave the Marlins because we had such a great thing with Dave Dombrowski and all the guys. It was so close, John Bowles. Then I went over to Boston. I thought, I'll never leave Boston. And then I got headhunted over to the Dodgers. And I look at these guys and what they do and how they do it and the resources you just sit there and it's like, God, I don't think I could manage now in the minor leagues.
But you said to me today when you texted me, you were like, "Mate, we've got 12 pitches out, right?" And that does not get any
Crazy.
airtime. Nobody talks about it. No one's sitting back going, the Dodgers have 12 pitchers out. They're going to a World Series to play. And there's no one's talking about it. Like, I read article after article after article, and I haven't seen anything talk about it. 12 pitchers out, right? So to get through to the World Series, I mean, that's, it's unbelievable. And the pickups at the trade deadline, like both the guys you guys picked up have just dominated.
Our front office, it's, watching them work, it's really something, to get in there and in meetings and that. And it's really interesting, their mindsets and their brain. And you sit back and you go, wow. Like, I was talking to one of the old scouts who actually hired me the other day. He goes, mate, and he's ready to retire. He goes, I can't do this anymore. He goes, it's just gone past me because the stuff they do now and the stuff, my reports now are just like, where they used to be 4 lines, it's a lot of data stuff, and you sit there and, you've got to. That's the only thing I know how to do, that and throw BP. But everything else in life, I'm useless.
Good BP, mate. Good BP. Yeah. Terrible punter.
We've actually, that was another thing. The fact that we're out of, not with this Australian thing anymore. It's been beautiful. My businesses have been going crazy, and I've just got in with a whole group of very influential horse people, and we've formed the World Series group. So we've got quite a few horses, and we actually have one running in the Melbourne Cup called Relentless Voyager. We bought it out from Europe.
Yeah.
And anyway, 5 vets cleared it, and 1 vet didn't clear it to run in the Melbourne Cup.
Come on.
And we wonder, it mysteriously had been back from 800 to 1 into 26 to 1, and we're just wondering if that may have been the reason.
Right.
So we've got quite a couple of really good horses at the moment.
Yeah.
And that just landed on Tuesday, and it's going to run within the next month in Sydney.
Beautiful.
Relentless Voyager. So keep an eye out for it.
We've got another one called Don Diego de Vega. That's a very good import.
Don Diego de Vega.
But I'm lucky. I'm in with a group of these very. I'm just the bum in the whole thing, but.
You bring the banter, mate. You bring the banter.
How you feel, mate? That's me in this podcast. I get it. It's okay. It's okay.
Just in with the right people. That's all.
Yeah,
mate,
yeah.
I have to say, wearing this hat was just a joke, mate. I had it up there upstairs.
No, I didn't ever notice, but
mate, put your glasses on. I know you need them. It is an N and a Y, but I thought it'd be funny.
I had knee replacement 12 weeks ago, so my eyes are good, and I'm thinking about making a comeback. Actually, I'm feeling that good.
Yes, that's what we want to hear. That's the scoop.
I just want to see you out scoop. I just want to see you out on the golf course to see you again, mate. See that you hack around next time when you're down in Melbourne.
I got 4 championship golf courses within 3 kilometres of me. I don't play because I'm hopeless. So I actually played with a few of the old Australian guys a while ago. Peter Vogler, Peter Hardis, Yatesy, and Stewie Thompson, who played in the 96 Olympics.
Yeah.
And they play over at Palm Meadows. And Glenn Partridge, who was a former
Piercy's right-hand man.
Yeah, so one Saturday morning I went up there and played with them, but it wasn't very successful, so I haven't been back since. So I've got the clubs, I've got everything, but I just don't have the talent.
Mate, you would have thrown the credit card on the bar anyway. It was all about what happens on the 19th hole more so than what happens out on the golf course. The banter would have been flowing for sure.
Yeah, it was funny. It was a funny day. I really enjoyed it. Good bunch of blokes.
Yeah.
Well, Deebs, look, mate, we appreciate you so much. And honestly, I don't think I've had more fun doing a podcast. This was sick. This was so good. And honestly, I could sit here, mate, and just I'm gonna wake up tomorrow and go, oh shit, I should have asked Deebs this, because I'm thinking you've taken me right back to that Red Sox team that I grew up and just fucking idolized as a kid. So that's awesome. And I won't bother you. I'll send messages to Hughesy to ask you, and Hughesy, I'll let Hughesy get sick of me. But mate, I appreciate you.
Yeah, one. Remember Randy Phillips we had at the academy?
Yep. He still messages me to the day on Facebook, mate.
Me too. Well, I'll tell you a funny story about him. He was coaching in the minor leagues with me with the Red Sox. He's a hitting guy, baseball nut. There's not a bigger nut in the world. Anyway, so 2005, he came up to visit me in Boston, and he was working with us. So we're sitting in the locker room and we're talking away, and we go out onto the field. As you go out onto the field, there's a urinal there. There's this old urinal there that's still used to this day. And I walk and I turn around and he's rubbing the urinal. I said, what are you doing? He looked at me, he said, Babe Ruth pissed in there.
Oh, I love it. I love it, mate.
Mention that to him next time you talk to him.
All
Tell him
right,
that.
we'll do, mate, for sure.
That's a
Hughesy,
treat.
you can wrap it up, mate.
Mate, you know, I've said earlier tonight how much you mean to me as a baseball player, mate. But only, mate, everybody in Australian baseball is a better person, a better player for having you involved in their careers and in their lives, mate. You're still involved to this day, mate. I know you're going to be in and around it, even if when DSAN does come back and take over. I know you just want to sit up there on the Gold Coast and retire, but you won't be able to stay away from it. And I know DSAN will have you sitting right next to him in that dugout to continue, growing what their Melbourne Aces have and all that, mate. So once again, mate, thank you. Really appreciate it. Sending lots of love up there for the family and all the boys and the girls and Katie, Ricky and Joy and Sharon, mate. Thank you for your time tonight, mate. And I look forward to having some banter with you this week when the Dodgers go down and I'll be flipping your texts and you just be ignoring my messages, mate. So anyway.
Thanks for the good words, mate. I really appreciate it. And you and all the other guys, they mean the world to me. So thank you.
Love you, mate.
Give us a call from over there. I'll do a live for you.
Do you even know how to do that, mate? Do you even know how to FaceTime?
We'll work it out.
Story for you, right? Johnny Deeble is a very good friend of mine. We're in Boston, and after we won the World Series in 2004, SEN, one of the radio stations, called me up and wanted to do an interview. And Johnny Deeble, he takes off Manny like you wouldn't believe. And I said, hang on, I'm in the change rooms. I've got Manny. Johnny got on there and he was talking to him for about 15 minutes and he sounded just like Manny. So,
That's great.
That's for you. So,
I
appreciate it, guys, and thanks for the kind words. And
Thanks,
good luck with your podcast.
Thanks,
Deebs,
mate.
you're a legend. Thanks, mate. We appreciate you. Thank
See
you.
you guys.
Going back. This ball's back.